Hello, everybody. Oh, this is a great crowd. I'm very, very proud to be here today. I have loved front-end for a very long time, and I think this is the right place to talk about some of the love that I have shown to front-end in the last couple of years. Today, we're going to be talking about MIDI, but before we jump into this exciting topic, let us deal with the boring stuff, right? My name is Armagan. I come from Berlin, Germany. I work for a company called Wayfair, which is an e-commerce company selling furniture online. I'm also involved a lot in open source, so I have libraries for front-end, for back-end, for microservices, for building guitar effects in the browser, for brain controls, typing with your brain signals and stuff. So if you're interested in open source and in contribution, you're more than welcome. Here are some of the libraries that I have. And I'm leading a volunteer organization called Lonja Works, and that is a software customership school for women because there's a huge gender gap in our industry, and we're trying our best to kind of equalize it. Okay, thanks. All right, what are we going to talk about today? We're going to talk about music, musical devices. Any musicians out here? Please raise your hands. A couple of people. Great. Anybody who plays the keyboard, the musical instrument? A couple of people again. Raise your hands if you have heard of MIDI before this talk. Okay, a lot of people did. Perfect. So there is a great API in Chrome, and I guess in Opera, that allows us to do crazy things with MIDI. And I'm hopefully going to demonstrate some of them to you today, and with a couple of more examples of what we can actually achieve in a meaningful way with these devices. So let's start with some of the basics. What is MIDI? MIDI stands for Music Instrument Digital Interface, and it is effectively a communications protocol for digital music equipment. So I have a couple of devices with me today that I'm going to be talking a lot about. This is a MIDI controller, it's called. It has a lot of buttons on it, and all it does is it sends different signals to whatever device it's connected to when you press these buttons. Okay. Oh, interesting. It can also make sounds if you connect it to something called a synthesizer. And these devices don't really have any sounds in them. They are just, again, control devices. Here's another one that I'm going to be demoing again today. This is something these two tools would be something you'll probably see in a DJ's tool set. They usually make different sort of music with these. They use these physical tactile controls that are actually really fun and easy to use if you're producing music. They have really nice touch with them. And you exactly know where you are with the state of your equipment and your music, and you don't have to use a mouse or anything else. But more about that later. So MIDI is a communication protocol. It's very much like JSON, but think of JSON in terms of music. We use JSON to communicate between different servers, browsers, even to other browsers, and pretty much every web technology nowadays understands JSON. This is the case for music instruments. And MIDI is invented in 1983, so it's, I think, 36 years old. So it's actually very old. When we think about digital music, maybe we wouldn't think of digital music back in 1983, but in fact, people were doing a lot of digital music back then, and they were like, hey, we have a lot of different instruments. Why don't we combine them? You know, can we do different things if we have just a simple keyboard and a lot of other synthesizers to go with that? Because a lot of different companies make synthesizers. You only need one keyboard to connect to any, in fact, to make sound. So Japanese instrument makers, Yamaha, Korg, and I guess Kawai, came up with this standard alongside their counterparts in the US. They said, hey, okay, this is a very, very simple protocol, and if our devices implement this, they will be able to communicate with each other. So the fact is, almost any music you hear today has been processed by MIDI-capable devices. Either they were directly used by DJs to mix the tracks, or they were actually played on MIDI instruments and synthesized, probably using a computer. All the beats that you hear in electronic music songs are actually probably MIDI. And what is it then? This is, I don't know, a little communications technical serial messaging protocol. So all you have is a series of 8-bit numbers, and you just, much like Morse code, you parse them and make a meaning out of it. And it's basically simply that. So here's what we have. It's 3 numbers. Basically, every MIDI message is a set of 3 numbers. The first one is called the status byte. It tells you what that number, what the instrument should do, and the letter 2 are just for data, whatever that number signifies. So what we have here is a note on command for the note C in the octave 3. So C3, note on, and this is usually the amplitude. 127 is the maximum value, 0 is the lowest value, so this turns the note off. So when you press a key in your keyboard, this message is thrown. When you release the key, the second message is thrown. That's exactly what MIDI is. And now this is available in our browsers. So there is a very, very cool API called Web MIDI done by Web Audio Group. And it's mostly available in Chrome. I think nowadays any browser that uses Chrome or Chromium has access to Web MIDI. Safari and WebKit don't think about implementing Web MIDI yet, but maybe we can change their opinions because it's really useful. And a lot of devices that you wouldn't imagine are actually capable of talking MIDI. So I'm going to be talking about that as well. Yeah, I already gave you the bad news. It's Chrome and Opera only. And the good news is, this is what it looks like. It's super, super simple. You want access from the computer, from the browser, from Navigator. You say, give me some MIDI access. And you just wait. There is a pop-up in the browser. The user clicks, yes, I consent. And they have to do it for once. And then MIDI is available automatically whenever you load the page for them. And basically, you have inputs and outputs in a MIDI device. Inputs are for the MIDI device to send you messages, and outputs are for writing to the MIDI device, because obviously they are communicating with each other, right? And what you do is basically there's an event handler called onMidiMessage, and you can just log it and see what it's doing. It's super, super simple. And that data is those 3 bytes. And you just press random buttons, they give you random numbers, and then you do, again, whatever you want with them. So let's see the first demo, the first experiment that we have with Web MIDI. I hope this will work, because, live demos kind of already always problematic. All right, so I also open sourced this, this library. I built a copy of this device there. So whenever I tap buttons, you will see the same color. This is a multicolor device, although it's not RGB. I think it has colors. Be able to see the buttons. All right, so first experiment is, of course, using the devices for their own purpose. Oh, that's good. I also used the Web Audio API. Raise your hands if you know Web Audio API, if you have heard of it. Perfect. Not a lot of people, so I encourage you to check it out. It's basically, it allows you to build any music application in the browser. I actually built a multi-track recorder, much like the studios use, that is online and that shares the session, much like Google Docs, and it's super easy. The Web MIDI API actually allows you to do a lot of things, and in this case, it allows us to make music. There is an oscillator that you can use. I used a very simple one, and I'm going to show you the code, of course, but buttons give us different sounds. Let's try to play something. Now it's a little difficult for me because now I'm looking at it on back, so please bear with me. Like this. Thank you. Next Monday will be really, piece of history. Okay, so would you like to see the code? Oh, let's see where the code is. All right. I hope you can read it. This is mostly the example that I copied and pasted. And what we have here is this very simple code block. All it does is, if there's a note, just make a sound. If there's no note, just silence it. And what we do in note on is we have the oscillator, and we change the frequency based on the incoming note. There is here, if you can see it, there's a little function that obviously I copied and pasted, again, from the example, that converts the button numbers into actual frequencies that you can play. Obviously, each number corresponds to a note, a music note, and then you can use this very nifty function to basically convert it to frequency. I don't know how it works, but it has a lot to do with audio processing. And yeah, that's as simple as it is. And when there's a note off, you just say cancel scheduled values, and at the tone, at the click, just set the volume to 0. It's super straightforward. It's very friendly to read and to write. And there are a lot of examples on the web for this type of stuff. Now, let's move on to the second experiment, which could be more fun. If I can find my browser. Oh. So this is a device with buttons, right? There are 64 buttons here, so they actually make a perfect graphic display as well. And what I did is I basically encoded very bad typography. It's bitmap fonts that are built into this device that I coded, and basically I implemented a snake game. Let's see if I can play it. Oh. And it was super fun. Since I was a kid, I wanted to do this. And, yeah, fail again. So, this is a very good use of this device. Thank you. Obviously, you can write anything you like in any color, and there can be any animations you like if you invest the time in building it. I had the dream of converting emojis to this thing, so animated emojis, so that they can play here with this limited screen. But yeah, you can basically do whatever you want. And oh yes, so I also provide libraries for these devices. If you happen to buy them, they're also very cheap. You can directly use this library. You import Launchpad, and then you have a grid already, and you do whatever you want with it. Again, when there's a MIDI message, I decide if it's the first button. If it's the first button, then I turn left. If it's the second button, I turn right with the snake. It was also very fun to program a snake game. So I encourage you, if you haven't done it before, it's very fun. So what I actually want to show you is, oh yeah, here's my font. So this is how I keep my font. It's, I think, a 4x5 grid, and I just said, like these are letters A, B, C, D, E, F, and whatever message you want to type, it just gets that block in the array, and then, types them on the screen. There's no particular reason for why I used the letters. It's just to make them more understandable. When you look at this block, it's P. If I could hit Option or something. Anyway, yeah, this is the second demo that you can do with this type of devices. Let's move on to another one. So the next one is one of my favorites, because now we're getting into useful territory. And this one is an image editor. Now, has anybody used Photoshop or a similar image editor? All of you did, right? What we do there is there are hundreds of menus, and what we do is we click around, change some values, and when we don't like them, we go back to that menu, hit Enter, hit Escape, use the trackpad with the mouse for stuff that doesn't really work that way in real life. So, I'm still failing. So, let's try this one. Now I'm going to use this device. Let's see if it works. Oh, it does work. So this is a very simple image editor I built in HTML and CSS. What it does is, on the right side, you see a list of CSS filters, and I'm basically modifying the CSS filters with this device. And also, of course, other nifty features like translate and transform. We can, very easily decide where it should be. We can rotate it, or scale it if you want to see the details. Very simple. And the filters are actually here. So I can adjust the brightness. This is actually a very good picture, but maybe we can change the style a little bit. So yeah, maybe it could be a black and white photo. It could be a sepia photo from, I don't know, from 1885 or something. I'm pretty sure the balloons were there back then. And we have the saturation. These are all CSS filters that are basically cross-browser. So everything will work in the browsers that support CSS filters, plus obviously the Web MIDI API. And you can change the color of the balloon. That's very nice. And yeah, there's also my favorite filter, the blur filter, that does nothing. It just blurs the image, and why would you want them to do that? Oh, and yeah, you can also obviously use this for a very good purpose of scaling fonts. And this is a topic that I'm going to talk in a little bit, but it's actually very good for accessibility. So if you have a hard time adjusting the font with, I don't know, keyboard shortcuts that nobody remembers, is it Command plus or Command equals or something to zoom in? You can actually use a MIDI device for that purpose. And yeah, this is actually fun because you exactly see where your filters are on this physical device, and you're touching them. You're touching your filters, and it's very easy to jump from one to the other. In fact, professional music editors and professional video editors always use devices of this type. They just don't tell us. We think those professional video editing software are built to be operated with mouse and trackpads, but actually it's not. They all have specific devices of this sort. I don't know if they are speaking MIDI, but they should be. And that is how we do an image editor, again, in CSS and HTML, and a little bit of a JavaScript. That JavaScript bit should be here. So I have a couple of filters and I have a couple of transforms. What I do is very simple. Again, depending on the channel that this device is giving me, which corresponds to the button that I'm pressing, I find the filter name from a map and then change the value. And in the end, I apply all of them to the DOM. It's very simple. You know, it's just this image.style filter. It gives you CSS filters. This image style transform gives you the transform. You know, it's extremely, extremely straightforward. These are very simple examples that I could come up with, but I'm sure you could do a lot more if you were to play with this API. Okay, and the fourth one is my favorite because I hacked it last night until about 5 a.m. in the morning. So let's see if it's going to work, because this is, again, another thing that I like very much. I'm going to be using this device still, and of course it's not really. Yeah, okay, it is working. So let's try. Who doesn't like this song? I love it. And it makes a lot of sense in a JavaScript conference, maybe 5 years ago, where we were using callbacks. But what I'm going to do is I basically mapped an equalizer to the buttons here. And it's 37 lines of code. And you see the values changing in the bottom. So I can remove the bass or pump it up. I can remove the treble or pump it up. So it's very simple. You know, if you happen to have an old stereo at home that has this graphical user interface, it was called graphical EQ, it was called. It's pretty much the same visual interface, and you just change filters based on certain values. You know, DJs do this a lot. If you happen to be at a DJ show, you know, they play with the filters. Wait for it. Thank you. So this is actually very useful, but I have another version. So fortunately it requires me to refresh the page. I hope we're going to have this song again. This time I'm going to run the advanced version, which is 51 lines of code. So there were a couple of other buttons here on this device, so I thought, why don't I use them? There is one used for stopping the recording, so I can actually stop a YouTube video or playing one. there seems to be a skip forward and skip backwards button. I didn't mess with YouTube API and internal JavaScript. In fact, we could do that, but I use it for another purpose. You know, if you want to blast through the song, or if you want to, you know, enjoy the view, you could do that. And yeah, I also added some properties to these knobs as well. That's another story. That's just changing small variations in the tone. But yeah, so this is actually a great tool to manipulate any video online, and you could basically build this into a browser plugin that would, I'm going to save you from the torment. You can build this into a browser plugin, and anybody can use any HTML5 video and manipulate it, the sound, the equalizer, and also the videos, play, pause, skip forward, skip backward, and it's again tactile controls. You don't really need a mouse for it, or you don't need to remember which shortcuts YouTube has for you. All right, let's go back to the presentation. The question is, what else can we build with this technology? As I already told you, MIDI is actually great for accessibility. You can build tactile inputs that are much more user-friendly than a mouse, than a traditional mouse or a trackpad, because we have all sorts of disabilities. And in fact, in one of the conferences, I met a person that was using a wheelchair, a motorized wheelchair with a nice controller, and we were casually talking about MIDI, and I learned that, in fact, some of the wheelchairs support MIDI. They have MIDI output. So basically, you can connect it to any MIDI device, any MIDI-capable device, and the person can do whatever they want and control whatever they want with, you know, just pressing simple buttons or the joystick, whatever is convenient for them. So this is actually, you know, a very underdeveloped area that is prone to further research and further applications. But in fact, we could do a lot more in terms of accessibility for the web. Again, not only, of course, for accessibility, but for other applications as well. You can build a music editor, you can build an image editor, a video editor, everything in the browser, thanks to Web Audio and Web MIDI. And I encourage you to try it today. I open sourced all the code in that repo. So even if you don't have these devices, you can, you know, try to connect them to any other device. It also works with Bluetooth. I'm cheap, that's why I got the wired versions of these devices, but they're all wireless Bluetooth as well. So if you want to use them on stage, which I sometimes do, you're very welcome to use them. So thank you very much for listening to me today. I hope you enjoyed the show. Thanks.